Hello, and welcome to AFSPA Live, our monthly digital broadcast designed to give AFSPA members and eligible federal employees a place to ask questions and get answers about past AFSPA Talks topics, their benefits, and wellness needs. You can ask your question through the chat box on whichever social media platform you're streaming AFSPA Live, YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn. If you're not able to join us live, call our toll-free line prior to the broadcast at 888-435-0757 and leave our team a voice message that we may play back and answer live on air. Just tell us who you are and the question you'd like us to answer. I'll see you at the next AFSPA Live.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to AFSPA Live, a live video broadcast Q&A session that we host on the last Thursday of the month at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. My name is Maddie Norton, and I'm excited to moderate the show today. I'm a Senior Communication Coordinator at AFSPA, and today we are discussing family building and mental health during times of transition. And we have two lovely guests with us. We have Danielle Dang from Maven, and then we also have Lauren Lenke from Maven as well. And of course, as always, we have Kyle Longton, our CEO. How's everyone doing today?
Doing well. Thank you for having us.
Of course, we're excited to have you guys here. And, for members who may not know, what is Maven Clinic?
So Maven Clinic, number one, again, thank you for having us. I actually grew up as an expat kid, so this is
nice.
exciting to kind of be able to address you all and see things come full circle. So Maven Clinic is the largest virtual clinic for women, family, and health providers in the world. And what we do is essentially provide emotional, clinical, and financial support on a platform that is available 365, 24/7. And what that looks like is Maven gives you on-demand access to a vetted library of resources, articles, community forums, as well as virtual access to providers from 35 different specialties available for essentially on-demand care. So we have specialists that range from OBGYNs, pediatricians, maternal fetal medicine, high-risk pregnancy experts, career coaches, sex coaches, and Lauren is from one of our most popular verticals, a mental health provider vertical. So what we do is we have really a phase-based view of looking at our members. And I know today we are really focusing on fertility and family building, but with Maven, you can start here and continue with us through maternity and newborn care. You can continue with us through parenting and pediatrics, all the way through menopause and midlife healthcare. So what we really want to do is focus on connecting our members, so you, to comprehensive care at every step in your life journey. And we want to be able to address those existing gaps in the healthcare system.
That's incredible. And I think one of the best things about Maven is that it's really for all age ranges and all stages of life for people. So even if you're not, building a family, or if you are out of that phase and now you have kids, or if you're entering the menopause phase of life, I think that's incredible that we have that option. Before we jump into some of our questions, I know that we have gotten some questions recently about different topics for today. So I know that Kyle has been wanting to address them. I know recently there has been some talk in the news about vaccines. Any vaccines or any coverage being affected by that, Kyle?
So it's a great question, and I'm glad that we got this. I'm glad we can address it, and I can give my best non-answer right now, because a lot of the changes with vaccines have come in just the last few days. There was information from the FDA that came out really on Friday and clear earlier into the beginning of this week about approval for COVID-19 boosters, and that the FDA at least is limiting the approval for some of those to just people over the age of 65. And people who are younger than that, if they have at least one condition that makes them high risk. That will still have to go before the CDC's ACIP, the committee that reviews vaccines. They are not scheduled to meet until later in September. They make the final recommendation on the coverage. And I should mention that our brochure coverage on vaccines, both for pediatrics and for adults, is specifically tied to the approval from and the recommendations from ACIP. So we'll be waiting for more information. There's obviously some politics, perhaps, depending on how you look at it, but it appears to be some politics involved and some disagreements within the public health community. So we'll be watching that as soon as we have further guidance, especially as we're approaching sort of high flu and COVID season, and diagnoses and case rates are going up. We will share as much information as we can as soon as we have it with our members. So please stay tuned to our social channels. Make sure that we've got a good email address for you on file so we can get that information out to you. So I do anticipate some changes, but they will follow our brochure language and follow the recommendations from the CDC once those are finalized.
And obviously, with open season coming up, we do have some questions about potential benefit changes. Someone did ask a question about with changes in insurance coverage requirements, what changes does AFSPA intend to make for 2026, especially in regards to gender-affirming care?
Great question. Officially, in terms of the overall changes, can't share those just yet. I can't confirm we have finalized things for OPM. However, those changes we're not allowed to make them public just yet. We're not allowed to make them public yet. We can't talk about gender-affirming care because changes we're making on that are requirements that have come from the Office of Personnel Management, which oversees the entire Federal Employee Health Benefits Program, as well as the Postal Service Health Benefits Program. And the requirements there changed very recently. Less than 2 weeks ago, we had an updated letter, and essentially OPM is requiring all plans to remove coverage for gender-affirming care, hormone therapy, as well as surgical benefits related to gender-affirming care. Has to go away. That will no longer be covered. However, they are allowing plans to put in place exceptions for those who are mid-treatment. Exactly what mid-treatment means, exactly what they intend for plans to do in terms of protection. We don't fully know. It's not outlined in the letter, so we are working on that. Understanding that many people have been on treatment for years, pre and post-surgical transition and so forth. So we are watching this. We will be able to provide information to members as soon as we have it. And we'll also be able to provide information about our other benefits, ideally sometime in October. So stay tuned to AFSPA Live, as well as to AFSPA Talks, our podcast, and other materials so that we can get you the latest information.
Absolutely. So just make sure that you're watching our socials, and as soon as we can share benefit changes with all of you, we will, obviously. And hopefully in the coming months, we'll have a better answer to some of those things and, more clarification. So Kyle, any other things you want to hit on before we jump into today's topic?
I think that's probably it for now. I'm sure there may be other things that come up and questions that may come up through the chat, but we're here to hear from our experts, from Danielle and Lauren. So let's get to some of the questions we've received for them.
Of course. So obviously, topic of today is mental health and family building. So if some of our members may not be aware, what is family building?
So I can take that one, Maddie. Family building is a broad, overarching term that we use to describe the process of planning, starting, or actually growing a family. So when you think about family building, this really starts from, there's a spectrum here, and it starts from taking out the goalie for a young married couple and they think they're ready to have a kid, but spans all the way through IVF, IUI, surrogacy, and adoption. And it could look different for everybody. So this is also inclusive of the different paths to parenthood. So including support for LGBTQ plus communities, single members who wish to engage in a family. It really is a blanket term that talks about growing your family.
Perfect. And how exactly does Maven help couples with family building?
So we're app-based, so we live in your pocket no matter where you are, what time it is, you're going to be able to access our resources. So thinking about that spectrum of some people can have intercourse and have a baby, and other people really need to go through many more steps to be able to grow their family. And I think thinking about what Maven offers, I really like to anchor it in that Maven really wants to be able to support you in the quickest path to a healthy baby. So we have, starting at one end, we have one-on-one trying to conceive coaching. So if you are just starting in the process of your family building, you're able to meet with a coach to kind of help optimize your actions, your behaviors, your lifestyle, to be able to give you that shortest path to a healthy baby. People in this track actually have 60% of folks do conceive within the first 6 months of starting here. Some of the tools that we have inside the app as well are an ovulation tracker. So we give you cycle insights. We are able, because of the platform that I mentioned before, if you have an irregular period over a few months, there are insights that pop up that trigger you to, hey, maybe you'd like to meet with an OBGYN and discuss this. We notice that your period is a little bit irregular. So we have that seamless connection. And honestly, the best part about Maven, and kind of how I describe it to friends, is that it's like having a friend that happens to be a doctor. So we have fertility specialists on the platform. We have reproductive endocrinologists. We have mental support, and I'll leave it to Lauren to speak about that a little bit more. But we know that the way that the healthcare system is designed right now, it's quick and it's hurried. So we field calls and appointments all the time from members who are just like, I was just told that I failed my sequential screen, and the doctor said a lot of things to me. I don't know what that means, and I'm panicking. You're able to log on with a Maven OBGYN who will really fill that information gap for you, who will help you advocate for what you need in your in-person services. Beyond that, we also have like at-home semen analysis. So male members that engage in this, actually like 40% have identified issues that need follow-up through a proactive semen analysis. So we know that 30% of members that join Maven are actually in their IVF process, but another 30% actually start their families without IVF. So this is really, we have a lot of different mechanisms, modalities of care to help support you in building a family. I think one of the most important ones actually is access to this mental health backbone of everything. So Lauren, do you want to say a few thoughts about your role in how we navigate this?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Danielle. And thank you all again for having us today. So I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and yeah, really happy to be here. As Danielle mentioned, so we keep stressing this 24/7, but I think it's really amazing in terms of mental health support. So Maven members can meet with licensed mental health providers like myself, as well as wellness coaches, sex coaches. I found that Maven members really appreciate the flexibility of these mental health offerings. So some members meet with me for one-off sessions or a handful of sessions around a specific mental health concern, or even to get specialized education on some aspects of mental health and wellness. Others meet with me weekly or every other week, monthly, for ongoing support or treatment in our brief goal-oriented psychotherapy. So it's really a huge range. And mental health support, as Danielle said, is really just embedded into the entire Maven Clinic platform. So in terms of couples and, kind of people that are trying to conceive, together or individually, people can meet with mental health providers for that individual or couple support, and really check in about like the emotional impact of wherever they're at on that trying to conceive family building journey. And what I really love here is like the interconnectedness of the Maven network. So we can have that multidisciplinary care team approach. So to build off of what Danielle said about having a doctor in your pocket, it's almost like having a group of professionals, a group of doctors in your pocket. So when I'm seeing someone, I'm able to say, hey, have you met with an OB about this? Hey, do you want to connect with one of our fertility awareness counselors? Hey, do you want to see one of the MFMs? And we're able to provide that, multidisciplinary care in real time, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, that is incredible. I think, mental health in any aspect or any stage of life is important. And I think especially when you're trying to build a family, it's key. And I know that we did get some questions about that, so I'll kind of jump into that. We got one about trying for a baby. It can obviously cause strain on your mental health and your relationships health. What should couples do to boost their health and their relationship?
Totally, yeah, and I'm happy to go into that question. So, I just want to first normalize the stress of this experience, and just let people know that they're really not alone in struggling with their mental and emotional health when trying to conceive. So, just to offer some statistics, according to the WHO, 1 in 6 couples globally face infertility, and then according to our internal Maven data, while 85% of responding members said they felt supported by their partners, 65% felt that the burden of fertility lay almost entirely with them, not with their partner. So the first recommendation I will make is just plainly to seek external support early in the process. I think as a society, we've done all right in recent years, starting to destigmatize individual therapy and mental health support, but I think we still have a really long way to go with treating couples and really seeing couples therapy as a tool versus a punishment or something we only use when things are going wrong. So really to kind of change that narrative, and especially with a resource like Maven, where like it's there, it's totally included in your Maven membership. It's 24/7. Working with our care team to find the right provider at the right time, the right frequency. Even if that's just a one-off session to say like, hey, how can we best support our relationship? While we're starting, to try to conceive, or while we're about to start this next round of IVF. So yeah, just really getting support early, externally, and then really just focusing internally on communication. So openly communicating together on your expectations, on where you're each coming from. And I'm also taking this like from the perspective of a like romantic partnership, but where you're both coming from in terms of, the why of family building, in terms of, how long you expect this to take, what are the different treatments that are, potentially in play, or, what are the tests? Danielle mentioned semen analysis. Are we like kind of understanding where we're at, in terms of like biological markers on where this journey is potentially taking us. And really in those conversations, using a lot of I statements. So instead of saying, you never listen to me, I feel overwhelmed. That's
Right.
Probably a better way to phrase that. And then really, just listening harder than I think we respond. Some other ideas, just using trusted resources. So I can't tell you how often I talk to people that are really experiencing a lot of anxiety from just kind of Googling
Right.
pregnancy symptoms, and totally understandably so, right? Like we have a finite amount of knowledge, but that's really where Maven comes into play. And just I really redirect people, like, let's just focus on Maven, have that be your data source, and kind of stay away from social media, and having your partner kind of like take that same approach as well. And then finally, scheduling some fertility free time to really just like focus on the relationship. Potentially just having like a date night with some boundaries around, hey, let's really not kind of focus on the IVF cycle that we're in, or not focusing on the 2-week wait that's happening, and really just taking breaks to make sure that the couple comes first.
Absolutely. I think that is really needed. I know that couples therapy just in general can be stigmatized, and therapy in general, obviously, but like you were saying, like, you can go to couples therapy just to work on your communication. It doesn't have to be like, oh, there's an issue that we need to solve. And especially when you're going through times of transition, like we've talked about, or starting your fertility journey or starting a family, like those are big life changes that you need to sort out. And it's okay to ask for help, or just be like, is this a normal way to feel? And I think Maven clearly does a very good job about that. We'll kind of jump into some more statistics, if you will. How long does it take the average couple to conceive?
I can take that one. Lauren, and before I start, I'm going to say, like, Lauren just really hit the nail on the head with how much communication is important in building a family. And like you've heard this, it is a trope that like having a baby either like builds and reinforces a relationship or it can completely destroy it. So just having that type of knowledge beforehand and being able to work on communication styles and relationships even before you got to get to IVF, before you have an infertility diagnosis, I think it's really meaningful in thinking about how you interact with your community. But Maddie, you're asking the question, so how long does it take for the average couple to conceive? Everybody is different. So like define average in this setting. Right. But the kind of the statistics and the numbers that we go by here is that when a woman is younger than 30, she has an 85% chance of conceiving within 1 year unassisted. Okay. So at the age of 30, there is a 75% chance to conceive in the first 12 months. And this chance just continues to decline at the age of 35, goes down to 44 at the age of 40. On Maven, I think I mentioned this earlier, 60% of our trying to conceive members across the age span are able to get pregnant without treatment within the first 6 months of Maven. So I think when people are asking this question, I am a very quantitative person. I like to know, like, I want to expect things. I want to schedule my baby now so I'm pregnant in the winter and not in the summer. But just understanding that these are just averages, these are general statistics, and it is going to be a process for everybody.
Absolutely. And I think that's a good way for people to know, like, it's always about like the individual person and like how different timelines are for different people. And exactly. But I do know that it's a common question that I'm sure you guys receive. Yeah.
And it's often it's so frustrating as well, because as a physician, I want to be able to say, if you do this, you will get this. Like, you are 35, therefore you should have a baby within 8 months. But it's just, you almost have to surrender to the process at a certain point.
Exactly.
And just having been on the other side where it took us, my wife and I, longer than a year, like, is this normal? Like, you know, we're talking about average and normal, and everybody's different. Everybody's biology is different, and history and so forth. And so I appreciate also having Maven. We did not have this. This was almost 10 years ago, but having Maven as a single source of truth to go through and get real information rather than, well, I just saw this special smoothie online.
My gosh, Doctor, like I spend half of my time refuting Dr. Instagram and Dr. TikTok, like, really. But this is the world that we live in. As well. This is the world that we live in, and I think it's really important that in this era of misinformation, there is that trusted source that you can go to, and a trusted source that is aligned with evidence-based practices and what really is supported by the majority of the medical community.
Absolutely. And then just like we were talking about how long it can take for the average couple, how many rounds of IVF does it usually take before a couple is pregnant?
Even with this question, it varies. Kyle, thank you for being so open with your journey. I've also it took me 6 years of IVF through 3 egg donors to have my child. But the average couple will take 2.7 cycles per couple of IVF. So somewhere between 2 and 3. Again, some people, my best friend, we did IVF at the same time and she got pregnant on the first shot. And other people have this journey. So it really is about normalizing. Like, we know this is what normally will happen, but be expected for it to happen right away, or for it to look a little bit differently for you. It can normally take like 3 to 6 rounds before success. And the success, I think what's important here is the success rates do vary by age as well. So 55% of women under 35 will be able to conceive, but it's lower for older age groups.
Gotcha. And Kyle, I'll ask you a question. Just, we talk about IVF and IUI. What exactly does FSPP cover when it comes to family building?
Absolutely. And so I will refer everybody to the brochure. If you have questions about this, I will also refer you to the brochure, because we have great support not only through Maven, but also through our nurse care managers who can guide people through this process and also help them understand the benefits and make sure things are in place. So we do cover without prior authorization IUI and similar procedures. So members can engage in that. We also don't require that you go to a specific provider, because a lot of those types of services now can be provided at an OBGYN rather than going to a fertility clinic. So when we're talking about IUI being the most common these days, that is covered. It is covered based on the network, the provider's network status. So 90/10 if you're going in network, 70/30 if you're going out of network. The 90/10 also, where we pay 90%, members responsible for 10%, also applies if you're going overseas. If you're looking for and seeking treatment through ART procedures, so whether that's IVF, ICSI, there's a number of different procedures that we outline in the brochure. We do require that members receive prior authorization, prior approval, in this case is the specific language, before you receive those services. And that applies whether you're in the United States or overseas. So you have to have that approval in place for the plan to consider any claims related to that. We also do provide coverage through our prescription drug benefit for hormone and other prescription drug treatments related to fertility treatments. Those can be sent through, and we did a previous podcast about Freedom Fertility Pharmacy, which is working in the background and does expedited shipping within the U.S. for drugs necessary for fertility treatment. So I encourage you to go back to that, but do check the plan brochure, contact us, contact the nurse care manager team that specifically all they work on is fertility, because they can definitely advise you of the benefits and what needs to be in place. And of course, Maven is a great support throughout the entire process, and also just understanding what your options are.
Absolutely. And I do just want to hit that Maven is available worldwide. And like we've said multiple times, it's available 24/7. So I know a lot of our members might be watching this at, different times of the day. And if you want to sign up right now, you can. I believe we have a QR code on the screen, and just know that it's at no cost to you if you're a foreign service benefit plan member. So definitely take advantage of some of those tools that we've talked about today, and we will jump back into some more. I know we've talked a little bit about some misconceptions when it comes to family building and fertility journey. So what are the common misconceptions that you guys are seeing when it comes to family building?
I think this is there's a handful, but the ones that stand out to me are, the first one is that IVF will guarantee a pregnancy. In reality, it's going to take multiple rounds. And in the end, even through multiple rounds, sometimes this is not going to be your path to parenthood, and it might have to look different. That's why I love at Maven that we do offer surrogacy coaching. We do offer adoption coaching as well. So there are a lot of different ways to build a family. And I think that's one of the most important things that we can emphasize at Maven. The second one is that infertility is a women's issue. Though it's true that most of the treatments for infertility right now, really the woman bears the burden in this. Male factors contribute to 50% of all infertility cases. And up to, I think the statistics is up to 40% of that 50% is reversible by behavioral changes. So do not think that this is just a female problem. This is also a male partner problem as well. And the last one, I think maybe Lauren, you can talk about this as well. And I can say I fell victim to this misconception, is that building a family, I can just do it. I'll do it myself. It'll be easy for me. I don't need to get anybody involved. I don't have a community. I think that's the biggest one. People talk about your village and growing it, but really being able to build that support system for you is really important, and nobody talks about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to, jump off that, I think, it can be such an isolating experience generally. Yeah. And so whether that's, just kind of without a infertility diagnosis or with one,
yeah.
I think it's really important to have, like you said, that sense of community. And one thing that I don't know if this is necessarily a misconception, but one thing that I work with people a lot on is this idea that up until this point, for a lot of folks, the MO is effort equals outcome, and fertility and family building just does not work with that.
I love that, Lauren. I haven't heard that, but I love that. Yeah.
I hear it I can't even tell you, day in, day out. And so we really work with people. I work with people on just not kind of getting into that self-blame. I think as humans, we're like meaning-making creatures. So we're looking for like a way to understand what's happening when, things are outside of our control. So I think to have compassion for that response, but then also to recognize like, hey, like, me spending energy beating myself up for this is actually energy wasted on, like, instead, how can I take care of myself? How can I get the support that I need? How can I engage with community? This is I have a stat here, 91% of our members say that fertility challenges have impacted their mental health. And so, that's almost everyone. I would say that, and those 9%, I'm very happy for them. But I think that, it's just really important to get that support. And if we can't kind of get that external community, just starting by meeting with one individual, anyone in the Maven network, I think is a great place to start.
Absolutely. I know we are approaching, or we are at 11:30, so I want to hit a couple of more questions. And I know that many of our members right now are going through PCSing, which is just known as permanent change of station. And change can be tough. I know when I was growing up and going through school, I hated the change of elementary school to middle school, even though it wasn't that big. But I know my parents struggled trying to understand and what I was going through. So do you have any tips for either children or parents that are struggling with times of transition, if their parents are going through a divorce, or if you're going through a divorce, or things like that? Any tips or tricks?
Yeah, thanks, Maddie. And to reinforce just what you said, change is really hard, especially for humans generally. Like we love homeostasis.
Right.
And like this idea of growing pains, right? So
Yes.
oftentimes like these transformative transition periods like are where we in retrospect can kind of see the most personal and family growth in a lot of ways. But I think just to kind of first sit with like the idea of we can have a lot of seemingly conflicting emotions at the same time when it comes to these changes, right? So maybe like excitement for the the joy of this like novelty, or maybe it's even like just where this is what this means for the career change, or just the next level in a way, but also grief coming a lot with change, and just in terms of the loss of community, potentially, location, memories attached with like a certain place. So really kind of honoring that whole spectrum, and in terms of like working with kids, like talking with kids about like, hey, yeah, it is really exciting, that we're moving, and you're gonna make new friends, you're gonna meet new people, have new experiences, and it's okay to be sad. It's understandable that you're missing your old school, your old friends. Here's how we're going to connect with them. So just kind of honoring a lot of those feelings at the same time, and then finding community in like the new space, which I think, going back to Maven, can be really helpful. We have like more community forums. Your providers are still on Maven. Just being able to have like those consistent touch points to say like, hey, like, not just how is it going unpacking the boxes, but how am I feeling about this, and what does this mean for my care also. So I think finding ways to build community, and using the resources that you have to keep community consistent along the way.
Absolutely. And we will jump to a question for Kyle. Is there specific mental health programs available for foreign service members?
Sure. So beyond the support that's available for Maven, as we're discussing today, members also have access at no charge to programs from Teladoc Health stateside for mental health. That's available through the Teladoc app, and also to Lyra Health if you're overseas. That's also available at no cost. More information on our website as well as in the brochure. And then we also have, as we've highlighted on AFSPA Live, as well as in some of our past podcast episodes, we do have a partnership with the Truman Group, which is a mental health group that specializes in care for expats. So if you're outside the U.S., that might be a good solution for you to look at the Truman Group and the providers they have there. They do provide care to all ages, including teenagers and even a little bit younger than that. So if you find a family member is needing support or you need that support, you can look to them. They are covered. We do treat them as an in-network provider. So there still is a cost share there, but we do treat them as in-network.
Absolutely. And then any last information or tidbits you guys would like to share before we end the show today? Oh, Kyle?
I neglected to mention before, if someone is seeking art services, including IVF, if you're in the U.S., we do require for coverage to be in place that members seek care at an Institutes of Excellence infertility provider, assuming one is in the network. If not, you can speak to the nurse care managers about a network exception. But I did want to get that in there, that piece is required and can be cleared as part of the prior approval process.
All right. Danielle, Lauren, anything you guys would like to add before we end the show?
I just want to say thank you for having us. And I think this is a joyous time to start thinking about building a family, and that if it doesn't work the way that you think it's going to, Maven has got you. So please log on. Lauren and I both see members on the platform ourselves. So really we want the best for everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much for having us. And hope to see some of you soon.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll just hit some quick things before we log off for today. September is Life Insurance Awareness Month, and we have some, I know, very exciting. And no matter what age you are, life insurance is important, including if you're in your 20s, that's the best time to get it. If you're in your 30s, that's a great time as well. So definitely look into that. We have some webinars on the 16th of September with Prudential. So definitely look on our AFSPA events page and register for that. That's very important. And we also just have another, our usual webinars. So, anything dealing with retirement, or if you're going through an employment change, we have those on the Tuesdays of September. So definitely check out the events page and sign up for those if you're interested. Our next AFSPA Live will be on September 25th at 11 a.m. So definitely tune in for that. We are excited to talk about life insurance. And we thank you guys so much. Thank you, Danielle, and thank you, Lauren, for joining us today. I feel like this has been really, really informative. I feel like I've learned a lot of things. So I appreciate you both for joining. And thank you all for watching. And thank you, everyone, for joining and answering our questions. And we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for watching our broadcast. Join us again the last Thursday of every month at 11 a.m. Eastern. Also, don't forget to look for AFSPA Cares on all of our social media channels.